We are live, and thank you everybody for joining us this Tuesday at 7. We took the missus and I, Beth, who's behind the camera this week, we were on vacation last week. We went to the mountains of New York and stayed at near Corning. And so we had Sean, who stepped in, and he interviewed Ira from Otherworld, and she's an installation and a fabricator, a phenomenal artist. And so we hope that you guys went ahead and caught that. But if you haven't, watch that back interview, because that was a really, really good one. And then
Cool.
I love when there's some show and tell there as well, and so she grabbed stuff off the wall and showed what she was doing and working on. So that was great. Anyway,
Awesome.
yeah. The week before, and the reason why we're bringing this up is the week before I had an opportunity to interview Max Denny, and we're giving away his artwork to a lucky winner this week. Max does some really unique, memorable work, and you'll, if you're looking back at that, you'll be able to see some of the. You can see that, all right, Beth?
You should see it up close.
Yeah, see it up close, and get the glare off. But at any rate, this is original artwork framed, and it's going to go to one of the winners. And so everybody who shared Max's interview, their name is here in the hat, and so we're going to pick a winner of some of this original artwork. You want to go ahead?
Theresa wants to pick on the thing.
No.
Maybe. No.
No.
The mystery guest. is
You
going to pick the winner.
don't have to introduce superstars. And so, Una Mooney, congratulations. You won this, and we'll make sure that we get your address. And but there's some phenomenal back interviews, but I'm going to hand that over to you.
Okay. Flavius McCary is watching.
Hey, Flav.
Flavor Flav.
Haven't seen you for a long time, Flav. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah. But many of you folks know, and you're tuning in because we're not here to talk about Roger or even Flavor, here to talk about
We're not?
Theresa. and Theresa, we've known each other for quite some time. We work together. We've had a chance to collaborate on some creative projects, and I'm really excited to hear your story. And for those of you who are watching, we want to encourage you to participate as well. So if you have any questions, shoot them. Beth will go ahead and keep an eye on those questions. Even if you're not watching live and you're watching this recorded, we're tagged here, so shoot those questions over anyways, and we'll do our best to get back to them. And then there's a share button.
Yeah.
And if you share this interview, on the bottom of your Facebook screen, if you press share, if you've never done that before, when you hit share, you could share it to a group, you could share it to your friends, you could share it to specific folks. And so when you share, we see it, we put your name in the hat, and we draw a prize next week. So share away.
Awesome. Please share. Who knows what the mystery prize will be? I'm not telling.
That's the mystery. All right. I'm just gonna throw a wide open general question. I'm just gonna ask it. Where did it all begin?
Whew, where did it all begin? That's a great question, because I don't ever remember there being a time where I didn't have like this burning passion for sounds. Like even when I was learning to speak, I don't have too many memories before I could speak, but I have a few.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always humming and obsessed with sounds. And a lot of me and my creativity comes from music, and that has guided me on my way since I was a young child. And then when I got a little bit older, then I realized, oh gosh, maybe I should be afraid. And so then I went through a phase of being afraid, and not doing all of those things. But it began very, very young, and it just kind of grew from there. And my journey kind of took me a few different places. A part of my life, I just kind of followed things like, I'm going to do this because it seems like a good idea at the time. And I veered off in different paths, and I didn't actually follow my passion until my mid-20s. And So that's where it all began. And there's a lot to unpack there.
Well, and I want to unpack some of it, and Beth is
Yeah.
going to jump in too, because Beth is a talented vocalist as well, and so she has questions that I won't even think of. And the others that are watching too, shoot your questions over so we can ask Theresa those live as well. There was a small aha moment for me just as you were talking about those memories of sounds, because I love music. That's not my strength. I don't think in sounds. I think in images. And I use words to describe images, and I use everything to describe the images. But it sounds like
I'm not like that.
you're not image driven. You're sound.
Yeah, there's always a melody in my head all the time, no matter what. Even if it could be an original melody that I'm thinking or something that I heard yesterday, 3 weeks before, it never stops. And so the way that I communicate with people, like sometimes I have to work extra hard at speaking.
Yeah.
Because I just feel it. It's the music for me is tied to emotion. And so that's my natural state, is through sound, through music.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah. You're challenging my thinking, because I hadn't thought of people who were sound driven, and it's just because that's not where I'm at. When you talk about that, when you describe that to people who are not sound driven, what's the reactions you've gotten from people, and talk us through that, because I mean you've challenged me.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I don't talk about it much because people don't understand. I mean, when I was younger, I had a hard time articulating that because I would get all in my head and all in my emotions that were all tied to music and sound, and not everybody was the same. But what was interesting is that my mom's the same. Her sister, her sister, Aunt June, if you're watching, I know you're the same as well. Like, we're all driven by the music all the time.
Yeah.
And so when you grow up with that, and that's your little unit, and then you go to the outside and you're like, wait, everybody's not like that. I became really shy because I didn't know how to talk about it. Now that I'm older, I don't have any issue, because you're my friend.
Yeah.
and I'm challenging you, and you challenge me in a way, in that I've had to, over time, as I said, work at explaining myself better, creating imagery for people that really are visual focused. So.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that we're going to get some questions, if not live, we're going to get them as people watch them as well, and shoot those out. Early on, so you were talking about sounds, was it vocal? Was it humming? Was it music? Because it's like...
Humming, vocal. Always. I didn't get into like playing instruments until I was a little bit older. I didn't really know what that was, but I was always humming something. And my mom will tell the story that I could sing before I could talk. And so she would remember it even more than I do, because I was always singing. So there's, as I said before, like there's never a time that I can remember, not ever in my 42 years, that the music has not been there.
Yeah, the music has stopped. Elementary years, was childhood, elementary years, I'm assuming that you're kind of humming your way through life, and then at some point, that shyness, right?
Probably about second grade.
Oh.
I got shy.
Okay.
When I was younger, I would say younger than 8, I would say, when I first started school, kindergarten, first grade, I was still humming a lot, and my mom was in nursing school at the time, so she would be at school, and my dad was at home with us, and had a good time with my dad and my brother, but they'd be out playing sports, and I'd just be in my back bedroom, like drawing pictures and humming. I would literally have my crayons, and I would be drawing. I would create these little backstories for little characters, and I would say, like, this is Beth Miller, and Beth Miller lives at this address, and she's got brown hair, and here's her outfit today, and tomorrow she's going to go to the school, and she's going to tell her, I would have these whole stories, but then I would be, like, singing them to myself. I had no audience, but I would, that's what I did all the time.
Yeah.
Was created and hummed little stories about these little characters that I would draw. And so that was, until probably about second grade. And then when I would start hanging out with friends, and then I realized they don't do that. And they didn't want to play that game with me. Then it got a little bit weird, and then I became pretty shy. I was not, I didn't have too many friends in elementary school, but I think a lot of it stemmed from, like, I would show a little bit who I was, and then they're like, you're weird. And I mean, I'm still weird, but now I embrace it. So yeah, about second grade is where I became really shy. I didn't do much.
So
with music.
the music was still there. It didn't stop. You just weren't.
I would hide in my room.
Okay.
I wouldn't even let my parents hear me sing. I would wait till they would go outside, or I would think they couldn't hear me, and I would be, somewhere with the door closed, because I had to do it. It was impossible for me not to, but I was afraid of, like, the rejection of people, not necessarily saying you're not good, but just not getting it. So I was like, it was like my secret thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time in 5th grade, we went to Mohican. It was like a field trip. All the kids in the 5th grade go to Mohican State Park, and they stay in these cabins. And apparently I was humming at night, and this girl was like, you have a horrible singing voice. You were singing in the middle of the night. And then, Dunsky. It made it even worse. So I would still sing to myself, but it was like, I'm not good. I'm just doing this because I feel like I have to. I felt like I needed to. It was always this drive to keep doing it, but I didn't want to share it. It was like my little secret, even more this little nugget that I had for myself.
Yeah.
And nobody else.
Fast forward how many years till, like, that next whatever, the next milestone, the next.
Yeah. So the next milestone was like a few years before, when I joined, the school choir.
Oh.
So here's something interesting too. I got my second rejection. 7th grade. So I got in choir. Great, love to sing. And I got my second rejection when I signed up for the show choir. And I auditioned, and I thought I did a pretty good job. I sang Up on the Roof by the Drifters, and I thought I was pretty darn cool, and I didn't make it in. And I'm like, oh, man, I must really suck. So,
Actually, 7th grade.
yeah, 7th grade. It was
that's
such
brutal.
a hard age anyway. But I was like, okay,
There you go.
maybe I'm not that good. But then I just kept, like, focusing on it on my own. I got a little bit more serious about it. And by the time I got into 10th grade, I started, like, nailing the auditions. And so I got into the audition choirs, and I got into the show choir, and, shout out to Highland High School. I got into added attraction my senior year, which was like the show choir. But the interesting thing about it is that I always had people around me, and I still was petrified to sing by myself. Even though I could, it was like, well, I have these 8 other people by me, so it's fine. But then I would try to, oh, do you want to do a solo? Nope, can't do it, no. Wouldn't do it. I would throw up. I'd get
Just
so
from the
nervous.
anxiety.
From the anxiety.
Was there a connection, do you think, with 7th grade to 10th grade, right? And just my psychology brain goes to, like, adolescence, right? So I mean, you passed through a milestone. I mean, you went from childhood to teenager.
Yeah.
Was there a difference? Was it socially? Was it vocally? Was it that you are established a different? What was there anything, or was it just?
I think it was more social.
Okay.
Because vocally, like, I've always known what I had, and I would practice it and get better. Yes, but it was more of the rejection thing that I was afraid of, and that, like, haunted me all the time. And so for that short window of years when I wouldn't sing in front of everybody, and then I just got sick of it. Like, but you like to do this.
Yeah.
So you like to do this a lot. So you have to try. So then I became comfortable in choirs.
Yeah.
And then I would sing, and then I would find a safe space where I would sing at church. And I got a voice teacher that was at church, and she really brought out, you know, some more confidence from me, because she's like, you could do this. What are you afraid of? If people judge you, forget about it. You know, and that her name is Annette Palmer. If you ever watch this, she really helped me come out of my shell and be more confident in what I was doing. But even still, it took me years after that to ever really kind of come to know that if I didn't do that, if I didn't follow the music, I would be terribly unhappy. And I'll take you there.
Yes. So take us there, and then I want to make sure I don't forget. So yes, take us there.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I kind of would just kind of, you know, meander with the tide and just do whatever felt like a good thing to do at the time.
Yeah.
I was going to go, well, I went to college. I went to the University of Akron. I didn't graduate. It wasn't for me. And I think it was because I didn't do what I was passionate about. I choked, freaked out, ran out of an audition. I wanted to be a music teacher, is what I told myself. I can do this. I can learn piano. I can sing. I know I can sing. And I went, signed up for the audition to get into the music school. It was my turn. I started to throw up, and I ran out. And my mom and my best friend followed after me. And my mom, to this day, I feel, it's not your fault, Mom. But she'll be like, I should have made you go back in there. And I didn't. But I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I kind of retracted again, right? So I didn't do anything with music after that for a while, years. And then I got into insurance. I'm like, I'm going to be an insurance person. I'm going to process claims. That's how I started it. I was like, my aunt, different aunt, my Aunt Renee, had a job at an insurance claims adjusting place, and I worked there, and I just made my way. And I'm like, I don't have to do music. I don't need to be involved in it. I'm just going to do this. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to get a job. I'm supposed to just do this. And then it caused like a series of like horrible decisions over the course of, 5-6 years, where at the time I'm like, well,
people get jobs and people
get jobs
do...
and people make dumb decisions. But I was like, okay, I'm missing something in my life. So then I would like, let me find this guy and let's get married to this guy that you don't know very well when you're really young, and he's a lot older than you, and he's got a lot of kids, and like, so like I made that decision. Nothing bad against any of you if you're watching, but a young, immature decision that I tried to fill a void with.
Yeah.
And then, just some other jobs. I would go out. I went out with friends who I love, and I still talk to my friends, but we would just go out trying to find trouble, because what else was there to do? I wasn't feeding my need of music for a long period of time. And it wasn't until after my marriage ended that I explored music seriously. And it was thanks to my beautiful Aunt June Sladeck. She kind of encouraged me at the time, like, what are you doing? Like, are you happy? What do you want to do? And so she was starting a band at the time, and she offered me a part as a backup singer. And I joined the band, and it was called Sold Out at the time, but there was another band called Sold Out, so we had to end up changing our name to something else. But I really learned then that was what I'm supposed to do. And she, when I say she, I mean June, she kind of showed me the ropes, and she was like, don't be afraid. This is you. You have to own who you are. And then I even weird things like, well, I'm afraid to move on stage. And she's like, don't be afraid to move on stage. You do what the music is telling you to do. Don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about what people are going to say about you. Just do it. And when I came to the realization that she was right, I never looked back.
Yeah.
Not ever. So now I'm doing it all the time. Now, yes, I have a day job. I won't talk about because I don't want to, breach any company policies. But I have a day job that I love, but I'm also feeding what I need to do in music now, and I've been able to, write the music, perform the music, and all of those things. So what was your question? I know you had
So you went from choir, high school show choir, right? Did you eventually find yourself getting into like these smaller singing groups, trios, duets, that eventually brought you down to smaller groups that may have laid down paving stones to singing by yourself, or was that just was it choir?
That might have been part of it, but it was mostly just the choir, because it was the camaraderie, and I was like, oh, all these beautiful sounds, and I'm just here among all of these voices singing in harmony, and I could feel it, and it was like I was most alive. But there's this other thing, right? So there's the music, but I'm also a natural entertainer, which I didn't know until I was older. That I can't, you both know me, so I can't be in front of people and not be like, hey, how's it going? So in my day job and those types of things, I have to pull it back and become reserved.
Yeah.
But I found that even in the choir, it was great. I could sing, I'm happy. Don't you dare get in front of people though yet. But there was always this thing but what if you do? And that voice I ignored for a long time too, afraid of rejection, but it was always like, you want to do that. You want to be in the front. Come on, like the little devil on your shoulder, you're going to be real happy if you do that. No, you can't do that. Oh yeah, you're real happy. And then when I finally did it, it was like, should have listened.
Yeah, should have went there earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned before that there was always, you said at the very early age, you always realized there was a connection between emotion and music, and that you can't really extract the two, that they're, I'm assuming, woven together in your shape. How has that played itself out in your singing, humming, music self?
Yeah. So, a couple different things. So if I'm just at home humming something, and I'm feeling really sad, I always notice that what's in my mind or what I'm humming is melancholy. It just happens that way. But the other, that's one part of it. But the other part of it is when I'm singing in front of people, I always channel whatever that emotion is. And sometimes it goes a little too far, and then I find myself don't cry in front of all these people, because then you're going to sound horrible or whatever. It could happen. And so I have to sometimes pull myself back a little bit. And that happened this past weekend at my show this past weekend, where it was don't cry in front of 10,000 people. Don't cry. Don't do it. And I still did right when I got off of the stage, because it was just super emotional.
Yeah. Does singing or humming, are you processing through your voice? In other words, if you're sad, does singing, humming through it help you process that feeling? Is that why it occurs, or is it just it's a description of it?
Yeah, I think it's both, depending on whatever's going on. Sometimes it's trying to get out whatever is stuck in there, right? So, for example, some of my best songs that I've ever written have come out of just the most emotional times I've ever had, and they just come out all at once. It's not like you sit down and you're like, I'm going to write a song today, and here are my lyrics, and here are the chords. It just all is bam! Because it's been knocking around in my brain for a certain period of time, it already existed in its finished form.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it is me dealing with certain things, and I'm creating this, whatever the story is that I want to tell, processing through emotions.
Yeah.
And then it just comes out. I alluded to, some bad decisions, that I made. And there's one of the songs that I wrote, it's called Never Learn, is kind of about that. I hurt a lot of people when I was in my 20s because I made stupid decisions. And I would make the same bad choices, over and over again. And it was never I never did drugs, I never, got in big trouble, but I hurt people. Yeah. And that was a hard thing to deal with, and I ignored it, but I didn't ignore it because my subconscious and that music was processing it until all at once it just spewed out.
Yeah.
So, and now I can talk about it. Now I've reconciled that, you know, when I was younger, you know, there's things to apologize for, and I've apologized to people that I've hurt, and it was important, but I needed the music to get me there.
Yeah. That's a interesting thing for me to think about. You were with June back, and you were, you know, singing, not out front, but you were in the band.
Yep.
And you started to get up on stage, and you started to feel and start to get in the rhythm of performance. Take us back there and tell us where that, you know, where that took you, and then maybe the steps beyond there.
Yeah, so I really grew from that experience with June, and you know, it was her band, and I didn't want to overstep my place.
Yeah.
But I will also say that, you know, back in those days, I started to get a little ego, and she's one of those people that I hurt, right? Because I'm like, I'm Ms. Almighty, I can sing, and I'm the backup singer. Young, 24, stupid. My aunt is my queen. She knows it, but I needed to go through that and get knocked down a few notches too, because I feel like I went through this period of, you know, being afraid to do it, and then you get a taste of something, and then, you know, sometimes your mind takes over and you get a little ego problem. So I did that. And so we parted ways at a certain point from the band. It was best for her and best for me. And I had to do a lot of thinking, you know, about how I wanted to move forward. And so I auditioned for another band, and I got in as a lead singer. And then that's where I really found that is what I should be doing. Because I figured that you know, the first time I hit the stage as the front person, I was like let out of a cage for the first time in my life. So
this is an observation of mine, and that is, I mean, I am blessed to be around some really talented people, right? I mean, you've got, and you're certainly on that list, and those folks that have been gifted some really special talent, at some point, you know, my observation is that they're like, oh, there's nothing special about my talent, it's just what I do. And then at some point they realize, oh, I do have something special. And that's this adjustment. And so it sounds as though you were in the choir, you get on stage, and then all of a sudden you're like, I think I've got something here. And that's, and then there's an adjustment there probably for somebody who is in their 40s, let alone in their 20s, who just said, okay, I think this is I found my shape. Right?
Yeah. And I see it. I see it with friends now. You know, I've got some friends that are younger than me they're where I was. And you know, I love them for it, because they're going through the same thing, and sometimes I give advice, but it's not necessary, obviously, and they don't have to listen to me. But it's interesting to see people where I was, and it actually kind of helps me to not beat myself up about it, because I guess it's a normal human thing.
Yeah. Give us some advice for somebody who is discovering that they've got something special and they're trying to adjust to it.
Yeah. So I'll give you the advice in the context that I give it to my daughter, because I find she's 13 and a half, and she's got the same thing that I had. She's got the musical talent. She naturally harmonizes. She's got all of these things and doesn't know how to deal with it. So what I've told her is you have to do what feels right for you. And if other people are making you feel invalid about your own truth, you've got to do that positive self-talk, because otherwise you're going to find yourself taking 5-6 steps back before you finally find your way home, if you will. And so I'm not one to say, well, what if I would have done this, or what if I would have done that? But if I can help someone like Abby, my daughter, who is extremely talented but also shy, and help her to realize that you have to make these decisions about, if you're, especially as an entertainer, you have to know you really love it. And if it's in your soul, then you already know you really love it. So follow whatever path that you want, but know that if you veer off, this will come back.
Mm-hmm.
It will come back. So that's my thing to people. If it's in your soul, you have to follow it, because no matter how hard you try to push it down, it will always resurface.
It'll come back at you. So you were in a band. All of a sudden, you find yourself out front, right?
Yeah.
And what was that band? Was it what genre? Was it your own music? Was
No.
it okay? Yeah.
I didn't do my own music until, let's see, 3 bands in.
Okay.
So I did the band with June, and then I was in a band called Oasis with Tom Riley. You know Tom Riley.
Yeah.
Tom Riley is my ex-father-in-law, who's also a
Salt
very
of
good
the
friend.
earth, yeah.
Salt of the earth. Yes, he's a wonderful guy. And the band started with him, and the funny story was that we all worked together.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kaiser Permanente.
Yeah.
We all worked together. I had decided I was going to audition for this other band. I went over to Eddie Flanagan's house, and God bless his soul, Eddie Flanagan. He, right away, the band was there, and they welcomed me in. And so I became, the lead girl singer of Oasis. And it was covers. It was party tunes.
Yeah.
It was, a lot of Beatles, a lot of fun, just a lot of fun things. And then they added things to the repertoire. And I was still green. Even though I had come out of my shell, if you asked Jimmy Stamper, he's probably not watching, but there's an awesome guy named Jimmy Stamper, and he owned a Stampers, and it was in Fairview Park, and I would play there a lot. And I've seen him several times since then, and he's like, man, between that time that you walked on my stage at Stampers and today, he's like, you've really just blossomed, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing. So that Oasis was the band that I really found my path as a front person.
Yeah.
And then after that, I decided I wanted to do country music. I always had this love for country music because my grandmother Alice, we would listen to country when I was real little. She would watch me from the time I was 3, even younger, maybe 2, until I went to kindergarten, and we would listen to all kinds of different music, but like Anne Murray. I don't know if you remember who Anne Murray, but there's
sure.
a song called "Could I Have This Dance," and it was my first song that I ever learned. Like, I knew every single word to this song, and I always went back to those types of songs. And so after I was in Oasis, I actually had my daughter while I was in Oasis, and I decided at that point, let's try something else, when she was probably about 1. So I joined the Caliber band, and I was with Caliber for several years, and that's when I really skyrocketed into they called me the Energizer Bunny, because I was just all over the place.
Just going, yeah.
Yeah. And then I recorded my album. So when I was in Caliber, that's when I started writing. I stopped ignoring the songs that were in my head, and I got some of them down. And there was another person who's dearly departed, Jerry Brightman. He was our steel guitar player in Caliber, and he and a gentleman named Gus helped me out, and we went and made a plan. We went down to Nashville, recorded an album. That was an awesome experience. I wrote some of the songs, other ones we, licensed out, and there's no turning back after that. So.
And I'm gonna go there. I remember we were at Home Days, Independence,
Oh, wow.
and I heard this country voice.
We weren't anywhere near the.
We heard this
the
country
dance
voice, and I was like, "There's something familiar to that voice." and I looked over, and you were there. But what I remember, in addition to your voice, was that you carried a persona, and I was like, who just brought somebody up from Nashville or Dallas or something to sing here? Like that persona, like what you were wearing, how you were walking, how you were carrying yourself was not a Cleveland
Right.
girl, right? It was, and so take us to that persona, not necessarily that one, but the importance of persona to your performance and how that has evolved
Yeah.
along with your voice.
Yeah. What's really interesting about that is that at the time that I was in Caliber, you know, on one hand, my voice was probably getting to the best that it ever was at that point. One could argue that I'm there today, but
I'll
'cause
argue that every time.
I continue working on it. But it was at that point, I was, you know, the instrument. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of criticism. I wasn't afraid of anything. I was out there doing my thing. But what I was afraid of is people getting to know me as a person, because that's a place where I was vulnerable, right? Because I had gone, you know, back and forth and good and bad things in my life, and I didn't want people to know the real me. I was this singer. I was Theresa Rose. I was, you know, so I wasn't me. I was really fun, but it wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know, and that persona came from not wanting to share who I am now. But the interesting thing about that is that after I, you know, lived with that for a while, I started getting more comfortable in my own skin. But I never really got comfortable in my own skin until I was with Neil. And everything changed then. So now I'm myself. Every time. Anytime.
With why is that? Meaning, why is it that you find somebody who also, you know, thinks in sounds and hums and probably finds that they can't exist without that music shape, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you find somebody and you're like, oh, that's how you process, and
Yes.
that's how I process. Is that it?
That's exactly it.
Oh.
When I met Neil, it was like no one I had ever met in my life. So, and I wrote a song called My Home about Neil, because I genuinely never felt like I could be myself or I was ever where I was supposed to be until I met him. And it was instant. It was instant. We knew each other for a couple of days, and I was like, this person is like my person. And it scared the hell out of me, because it was on an intellectual level, it was on a musical level, all of those things. And I was able to open up musically. You know, when I talk about some of the songs like just spewing out, my best songs spewed out at the same time, within the same week. Like, just done songs. They were done. Neil, I have this idea. Done. And it opened up with him.
Processing the interwoven emotion and music, and all of a sudden, like, now things are starting to take shape, right? I mean, you're producing. Tell us what that is. I mean, is that you get that, the word, the emotion? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Is it on your way home from work? Do you hum it to your phone? Do you write? Like, what is that?
It is all of those things, right? So usually I'll write like I said, the best songs are just all at once. But other times, it's most often in the shower, because I do a lot of thinking in the shower. right? Thinking about my day, thinking about the prior day, thinking about things that are bothering me. And as I mentioned, like as I'm thinking, they're always to a melody. Like my thoughts are always to a melody. And sometimes they're good. And so I find myself very often like jumping out of the shower and taking my phone and humming it into my phone and then singing the words into my phone. And then I have just hundreds of drafts on my phone of just little rough ideas.
Snippets.
And sometimes they just all come out into a song. And other times they just stay in my phone. But I always get them down because I know when the music comes calling, I don't have any other choice than to listen. So
Yeah. You write, you perform, you've taken on not just vocal, but you also have gone back and said, hey, I'm going to pick up some keyboards and some guitars. Tell us how, how
well,
grabbing
I live
some
with the
instruments.
best guitar player in the world. But my husband is the best guitar player. I mean, that's I think he is.
And
We don't disagree.
yeah, we agree with you.
Yes. So, I mean, I always wanted to play guitar. I tried to teach myself when I was younger. And then he really helped me come into my own. I can accompany myself now, which I'm proud of. That I'm going to start playing guitar pretty soon with my duo. It's a confidence thing as well. That, my natural instrument is my 100% I'm confident with, and I will do it no matter what, no matter where, no matter who's listening. The guitar is like, oh God, they're going to see my fingers mess up, But I've been able to do that. And then during COVID, I always wanted to play piano. And I took piano lessons when I was 8, something like that. And I tried it a couple of times. And I would get frustrated and I'd tell Mom, I want to quit. And, that's another thing where if you ask her to this day, she's like, why did I let you quit? I have no idea. But it's still, to this day, I want to play piano. So I started taking piano lessons and had a really great teacher. Unfortunately, my life got really complicated and I can't commit to always do lessons all the time now. But I came a long way. I can play music. I learned Chopin. I learned Bach. Things that I wanted to do. And I found that during those lessons, I feel classical music a lot too. I feel it. So I told Neil that once COVID is over, I want to go to Europe and visit all of the places where all of the songs that, touch me within my soul, where did they come out?
Yeah.
Where do they begin? I want to go there. I want to touch the wall if I can. I want to feel it because those vibrations were in that very room. I want to go there because I feel like it's going to be something special. It's kind of calling me to do that.
Yeah. COVID,
Yeah.
you start to pick up some instruments, you start to feel this classical pull and push and, maybe this dance going on. People start to emerge right from COVID and they start to gather again. Tell us where Theresa is at here in 2021. We're in July. It's summer, so we're just breaking out of this pandemic.
Yeah. So a little backtrack is that it's got to be 4 years ago now. I got burnt out from performing with Caliber, and I stopped. I didn't want to miss. Maybe even more than 4 years, 5 years.
I think so.
My daughter, was little. I didn't want to miss her events. I didn't want to miss that special time with her. And I felt like there was so much going on with performing that I was going to blink and it would be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a hiatus. And I had every intention of I'm going to work on writing an album and I'm going to do these things. And just life happens. So I've got these drafts of songs and songs that we haven't recorded yet and songs that we have recorded and I haven't published and all of these things. But I'm glad that I took a break because I got to really experience how cool my daughter is and just be there for her as she's finding her voice and finding her passion for acting and her passion for figure skating and all of these things. Like, she's her own little person, right? And so I took a break, and then I started slowly kind of coming back into things. And during COVID, actually, as things started to emerge, I got a call. I got a call from E-Rock Sosinski from Wish You Were Here. And he invited me to audition. Marla Brennan, fantastic vocalist, had been with them for 22 years, had decided that it was time to pass the mic off to someone else. So they invited me to audition, and I did. And thankfully, I made it into the band. So if you don't know who Wish You Were Here is, it's the sight and sound of Pink Floyd, and it's an amazing show. As I told E-Rock in our first call, in my early years, I didn't know much about Pink Floyd, and it's been like another epiphany for me, like feeling that music, because there's so much emotion and so much there. So complicated, and you just close your eyes and listen to all of these layers of just magnificence. And it's been like life-changing for me to be able to be a background singer in that band, only after one show. but the music is so good that life led me here. Yeah. And so I'm there, and then I also do a duo. I'm with my friend Wes McCraw, and we do a show called The Travelin' Johnsons. That's another story. I feel like I keep talking about people like God rest their soul, but unfortunately, a wonderful musician, Phil Talbot, passed away, and he was a duo partner of Wes. And I always said that I always wanted to do a duo, but I would never do one unless it was with Neil, my husband, or if it was with Wes. And really tragic circumstances, had to bring us where we are, but we're kind of finding our way as a duo, and that's an awful lot of fun too. And so I have these kind of two different vehicles that I drive in now to kind of feed the beast.
We shared one of your Beatle tunes with the Tuesday at 7 group back when you were up at Put in Bay a few weeks ago.
Keys in Put in Bay,
Yeah, I think it was "I'll Follow the Sun."
Oh, Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah.
It was one of the Beatles songs. Yeah, what a great thing. I want to go back to before we step away from the "Wish You Were Here," because one of my favorite songs is a song that you performed here just this past weekend, "Great Gig in the Sky."
Yeah.
And if you're a Pink Floyd and a Dark Side of the Moon fan, you know that is that's a pinnacle challenge is to carry that off. Talk to us about the emotion.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the emotion, the performance of that piece, and then how the musical, how the dance or the shape between you and an audience of 10,000 people affected that performance. Because I'm just trying to explore, because I don't understand it, like how those pieces fit together and how that experience happens.
I'm going to try not...
Real quick, before you do that, only just because I think personally, so did you... Because Roger had to tell me the story about the woman who sang Great Gig in the Sky originally. Did you research that?
I did research that.
Because while he was asking that question, all I was picturing was kind of the symmetry of her getting that, not feeling good about it.
Like not knowing what she's supposed to do.
Yeah, and just letting go and just breaking the barriers of what they were expecting for that song and blowing them away and just releasing it. And that was kind of where you're at right now. Like the symmetry there is pretty fabulous on you singing that song.
Well, thank you for making that correlation. For me, it's been an emotional ride since the beginning, right? Because as I said before, like I've always got this emotion tied to the sounds, tied to the music. And when I started to dig in about Pink Floyd, and E-Rock said, yeah, definitely, I want you to audition with Great Gig in the Sky. And I listened to it and I was like, oh God, I'm going to vomit. Like, this song is a beast, right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself just listening with my eyes closed, just like again and again and again, and feeling what was the music telling me? And it kind of like took you on a little journey, right? And that's where I started. That's how I moved through the song. Because if you don't know, it's a song with absolutely no words. And so it's all emotion. It's all conveying like guts out to whoever's listening.
Yeah.
Or up to the energy.
Right.
And for me, I harnessed that. And then also, not to gush on my band, but Wish You Were Here. I mean, these people are just the greatest people that I can't say enough good things about them. Like, I was embraced in this group, and I was scared shitless. Like, I'm going to join a band that's been together for 26 years, and I'm going to be like the new kid coming into school with their lunch tray, walking into the cafeteria, and like sitting by myself at the lunch table. And that was not what happened.
No, it was.
You know, there was so much grace and just welcoming energy from every single one. And special shout out to my friend Joe Rice. He's one of the keyboard players in the band, and he's one of the newbies as well. Like, before myself and Pete Tillari, who's the new drummer, he was the new guy. And he said to me, I remember what that feels like, and I wanted to make sure that when you came into the group that you felt like you're just part of the family. And he did. I mean, from the get-go, he introduced me to everyone. And then Sharon Fox, who's the other singer, background singer in the band, I mean, phenomenal, beautiful heart, beautiful voice. Like, this connection that's between she and I is never going to be broken either. Like, regardless of whatever happens, we're going to be like singing together. So, I mean, it's just been amazing. So I've taken all of that in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
These are life experiences that are, it's like a once in a lifetime thing where you meet a group of people, not just one person, not just two people, but like 10 people, and not just the band, the crew. Like, everyone in this organization is just like, it's amazing. Like, and I'm not talking about a cult, but I'm sure people are like, oh my God, is she in a cult now? No, it's just amazingly awesome people that have welcomed me in and that really spoke to my heart. And when I got on the stage, you know, you're talking about how does that translate to 10,000 people? I mean, I just pull on all of that. And my family and Neil and all of the experiences. You know, if you watch that show, if you were at that show, or if you see the video, you know, I close my eyes a lot because I'm not performing, I'm harnessing. And the instrument is just the conduit of how that energy gets out to everybody else. So
2021.
Yeah.
We're halfway, a little bit over halfway through 2021. What do you have ahead of you? And I want to, and part of that too is I'm going to break the question in two parts. Tell me how ahead of you is parenting and anting other music-shaped family members.
Yeah.
So, you know, about that, and then also, like, what's coming up? What's on your wish list, or, you know, and then short term, maybe long term for you?
I'm glad you asked that, because it's really important to me now that I try to cultivate just in my daughter and in my nieces that you have to follow your heart. And hopefully they get that from me. You know, it's not about what other people think about you. It's not about, you know, because it's so often, especially in today's world, like they'll try to be, I just think about like, and I love TikTok, but I see these people on TikTok that are they're trying to be something, but some people get it and they're themselves, and then there's people that are like cringy, trying to be something. They're trying to be a star. They're going after being a star, and they're not going after honoring the energy and the truth from within. And that's what I'm trying to communicate to my daughter and to my nieces. You know, some of them are very young, and so they don't get it yet, but they will get it as they grow up. That Auntie T's been there a time or two, and you know, anything that I can do to kind of help on your journey, that's what I want to do. It's not all about me anymore. You know, I'm old, but I'm not. But back in my day, we had to walk up the hill on the way to school in the snowstorm. But it's really about how can I help other people now, and how can I use my energy in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if it's my voice, great. If it's my smile at you today, that's great. But those are the things that I feel are important to communicate to the younger generation, that if you honor that first, then the rest is going to follow.
And then the rest of your, maybe your wish list, your bucket list. I mean, that's not even a fair question to ask somebody who is youthful and in the prime of their voice, right? But I mean, like, what are some of the things that you're like, I would like to do this in the next handful of years? Yeah,
well, so I did start writing a musical during COVID, but then I paused it because just like all this other stuff started happening. I'm like, wait, I can't keep up. So I would like to finish the musical. It's the story of Tchaikovsky. I don't want to say too much about it, but you know, I want to finish this musical. And I also want to get another album out, because there's more songs that haven't been released, and there's things I have to say, things I need to share, feelings I need to share. Those are the things that if I could focus on, those are what I would want to do in the next few years.
And there's a whole lot of little hummed and
there's a whole bunch in my phone
sitting in your phone waiting to come out. Well, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll go ahead and Theresa will get on, and if it's something that I can help with, I will. If you share this interview next week, your name will go in the hat, and we'll go ahead and draw a mystery giveaway, and we appreciate, Theresa, you sharing with us your story. I mean, it was really, I mean, you challenged me to think in a different way during this interview, and I wasn't expecting that. And I appreciate you being transparent and honest, and giving us, you know, the real story, real story of Theresa Rose.
Next Wish You Were Here performance.
Yeah, so the next Wish You Were Here performance is August 28th at the Warren Amphitheater. And then there's a show in November in Columbus, but I can't remember the date, so you can check out www.floydtribute.com. But I do want to, since you're giving me the opportunity.
Please.
This is a special one. I don't know if you can see this. This is going to be the tribute to Pink Floyd show of Wish You Were Here at the Akron Civic. Okay, now this is a fundraiser for Akron Children's Hospital Palliative Care Unit, and over the past several years the band has raised over $100,000 for the hospital, and we want to continue to doing that same thing. And so this will be my first time being a part of this special event, so I welcome all of you to join us. It's going to be a really awesome show. If you know I love the Civic. If you know me, you know I love the Civic. I love the group Wish You Were Here. It's going to put on a great show, and it's going to benefit a great cause. So check us out if you would like, or see me with the Traveling Johnsons.
This sounds good. And we will make sure that we put that link here attached to the interview as well, so people can just press and get right to it. How do people find you? I mean, do website, social media? How do we hear your stuff?
So the best right now would probably be my Facebook page. So you can find me as Theresa Rose or Theresa Rose Music on Facebook. Both of those pages, Theresa Rose is my personal page, but I always kind of direct people to Theresa Rose Music because that's where I'm going to post all of my dates. Any new music that comes out will all be posted there. I do have a website, theresarosemusic.com. However, I don't think I've updated it in several years, so I have some homework to do there.
Sounds good. I appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
Beth, thank you for arming the camera, and we appreciate you guys joining us this Tuesday at 7.